For a long time, it felt like the question wasn't if Red Bull would win. It was by how much. Pole by 3/10. Race wins by 20 seconds. Championships wrapped up with rounds to spare. For nearly a full era of Formula One, Red Bull weren't just the benchmark, they were the final level. If you wanted a title, you didn't just have to beat a fast car. You had to beat Adrian Newey, Honda Power, and a team that looked almost allergic to weakness. Now, for the first time in years, you can see cracks. They're not explosions, not a dramatic collapse, more like hairline fractures spreading through a structure that once looked unbreakable. No Newey, no Honda Works deal, no automatic dominance. So what actually happened to the Red Bull empire? And are we watching the beginning of the end, or just the end of an era of perfection? First, let's remember what this empire really was. Red Bull didn't just build one fast car. They built a system. On the technical side, Adrian Newey turned regulation changes into opportunities. Whether it was blown diffusers, high-rate concepts, or ground effect floors, he had an almost unfair talent for reading between the lines of the rulebook and finding performance nobody else saw. Give him a constraint, and he'd turn it into a weapon. On the power unit side, Honda went from punchline to powerhouse. Their early years back in F1 were brutal. Reliability issues, penalties, memes. But once they embedded with Red Bull, something clicked. The project gained stability, key people were empowered, and slowly the Honda engine transformed into exactly what Max Verstappen needed. Powerful, drivable, and, most importantly in the cost cap era, predictable.
Add in a race team drilled to near military efficiency and a driver operating at a historic peak, and you get the Red Bull we all remember, the team that crushed entire seasons before summer.
So why does it feel different now? Let's start with the most symbolic fracture, Adrian Newey walking away. For years, people said the same thing. Red Bull will be fine after Newey. They have a big technical group. One man doesn't design the whole car anymore. That's true, but also not the whole story. Modern F1 cars are the product of hundreds of engineers and thousands of simulation hours. But at the top of that pyramid, you still need someone willing to make bold conceptual calls. Do we push the side pod layout this way? Do we risk a radical floor design? Do we accept short-term pain for long-term ceiling? Newey was that person. He didn't just sign off drawings. He gave the car a philosophy. When regulations changed, his brain naturally jumped too. What is everyone else scared to try? And because he had the track record, the room tended to follow him. When he leaves, the C80 software doesn't shut down. The wind tunnel doesn't go dark. But something does change. Suddenly, there is no universally trusted tiebreaker in technical debates. Ideas that Newey might have killed early can now live longer. Concepts that needed his backing to survive might die in committee. You don't see that on a lap chart right away. But over a season or two, that missing North Star starts to matter. Especially when you're no longer the only super team in town. Because while Red Bull were dominating, everyone else wasn't just watching. McLaren rebuilt their structure, hired aggressively, and turned a midfield car into a title-contending weapon. Mercedes tore apart concepts that didn't work and swallowed the ego hit to start again. Ferrari cleaned up their operations and began turning flashes of speed into something closer to consistency. The advantage Red Bull had in 2022 and 2023, that terrifying combination of a genius designer, a mature works-level engine, and a driver in God mode form, was always going to shrink as budgets leveled and rivals caught up. But there's another shift coming that makes those cracks even more dangerous. Honda are leaving, not disappearing, just changing who they're willing to go all in with. When a manufacturer becomes a true works partner, it's not just about slapping a logo on the engine cover. It's about aligning your entire development plan with one team's needs. Combustion philosophy, energy recovery strategy, packaging compromises, all of that gets tuned for one chassis. For Red Bull, that relationship with Honda became the silent backbone of their dominance. Then the future changed. Honda committed to a new works project with another team. Red Bull committed to doing something that sounds simple on paper and is brutally hard in reality. Building their own power unit structure with a partner from scratch under one of the most restrictive rule sets Formula One has ever had. You don't feel that overnight. The current engines don't suddenly lose horsepower. You don't wake up one morning and find half a second gone down the straight. What you do feel is this: the long-term security, The comfort that your next generation power unit will be optimized around you, and only you, is no longer guaranteed. Red Bull Powertrains is a bold move. It's also a massive risk. You're asking a team that built its empire on being the best at one thing, chassis performance, to suddenly be the best at two. And here's the thing, there is no such thing as a pretty good engine project in F1. If you're slightly off in combustion efficiency, slightly behind on hybrid deployment, slightly too conservative on cooling, the car pays the price every single lap. And unlike aero parts, you can't just bolt on a new engine spec every weekend and hope the cost cap looks the other way. This is where the empire starts to feel stretched. At the exact moment Red Bull need to reinvent their power unit identity, the technical department is losing its figurehead. At the exact moment rivals are closing the gap on pure aero, Red Bull need to devote focus, money, and political energy to the engine side. Meanwhile, the cost cap is doing its silent job in the background, making it harder for any one team to spend their way out of trouble. In the old days, a team in Red Bull's position could have simply hired every available genius in the paddock, thrown absurd resources at wind tunnels and dynos, and bludgeoned the problem into submission. Now, you have to choose. Do you prioritize building the engine empire of the future, or do you double down on keeping the current chassis on top while the window is still open? Those choices create trade-offs. Trade-offs create delays, and delays, in modern F1, create opportunities for everyone else. And then there's the human factor. Dominance is heavy. When you've spent season after season winning almost everything, small internal tensions can be hidden under silverware. Power struggles and management, disagreements over the future direction, key staff wondering if it's time to jump ship and try a new project. All of that becomes louder the moment the win rate drops. People notice when Adrian Newey takes meetings elsewhere. They notice when senior engineers get linked to rival teams. They notice when a driver like Max Verstappen, who once seemed glued to the project for life, suddenly finds his name floating in future seat rumors. Even if nothing dramatic happens in public, the atmosphere changes. You go from "we are building an unstoppable dynasty" to "we are defending what we've already built." That may sound subtle. On the stopwatch, it isn't. A team that is hunting, like McLaren or a reborn Mercedes, will take risks. They will try wild concepts, gamble on aggressive upgrade packages, roll the dice on undercuts and overcuts because second place means nothing to them. A team that feels it has something to lose often leans the other way. Suddenly, you see more conservative setup calls, less willingness to sacrifice one weekend to unlock a bigger step later. More pressure on the driver to bring it home when the car is tricky instead of digging into why it's tricky in the first place. Over a full season, that difference in mentality can turn a half-tenth advantage into a half-tenth deficit. So is the Red Bull empire actually collapsing? Not yet. The car is still fast. The driver is still one of the greatest of his generation. The organization still knows how to win. But what made them terrifying in 2022 and 2023 wasn't just that they were ahead. It was that they felt inevitable. You could change the track, the weather, the tire compounds, and the outcome would still be the same. Red Bull on top. Everyone else grateful just to be close. That inevitability is gone. Rivals have stopped racing them like a force of nature and started racing them like a beatable opponent. Strategy calls get challenged. Overtakes get sent. Other teams bring upgrades to Red Bull strongholds and actually make them work. When you zoom out, what you see isn't a single catastrophic failure. You see an empire caught in a transition it can't fully control. A genius designer stepping away just as rivals hit their stride. A trusted engine partner walking into the sunset while a new, improving project takes shape. A cost-capped world where money can't simply erase mistakes. Put all of that together, and you don't get a sudden explosion. You get something slower, and maybe more interesting. You get a dominant team force to become something they haven't had to be for a long time. Flexible. They can no longer rely on Newey magic to rescue a tricky concept. They can no longer assume their engine path is guaranteed. They can no longer expect everyone else to trip over themselves while they walk cleanly to the title. If they adapt, if the new technical leadership finds its voice and the power unit project delivers, Red Bull can absolutely stay at the front of Formula One. But if they don't, if those hairline fractures spread just a little further, then history will look back at this moment This exact combination of departures, decisions, and pressure as the beginning of the end of an era. Not the day the empire fell, the day it stopped looking untouchable.